welcome to Up Close with Carlos Sang, celebrating art, entertainment, and the human spirit. Welcome to another episode of Up Close with Carlos Sang. My next guest is an Obie Award-winning actor who has a list of incredible credits on Broadway, ranging from Rock of Ages to Twelfth Night to Beetlejuice. He is currently playing Tevye in Regent's Park open-air theatre production of Fiddler on the Roof. It's a huge delight to be able to introduce Adam Dannheisser. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So you previously played Lazar Wolf in the Broadway production of Fiddler on the Roof just under a decade ago. Why did you want to, come back to the world of Anatevka to now play Tevye in this incredible show?
Well, I think Tevye has always been a dream role of mine. I don't think it, I know it, ever since I was, first starting out. In fact, one of the first, I think I auditioned for a play my freshman year of high school in the States, and it was something terrible like No No Nanette or something that's never done anymore because of it's just dated, terrible stuff. But anyway, I had to prepare a song, so I prepared If I Were a Rich Man for this audition. And I found a little bamboo cane because I figured, old people walk with bamboo canes, apparently, and did my audition. And I got cast in the ensemble of No No Nanette with that. But yeah, it's always been a dream role. So the idea of revisiting Anatevka was sort of a no-brainer for me. I loved playing Lazar Wolf. I loved the Broadway production. It was also very successful and very beautiful. But it's goes without saying that Tevye has a much more substantial piece of the pie to tackle, which is mixing metaphors. But if you can picture me tackling a pie, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, of course. I mean, what is that experience like, having experienced the show back in 2015 on Broadway and, coming back, to the show, but as a different character?
Well, when you're playing a certain character, you're not necessarily focused on what everyone else is doing, obviously. I mean, you're in scenes with them and you're listening and you're learning, but I certainly wasn't privy to the crafting of the role of Tevye. So even though I've done the play, I really hadn't done the work on what Tevye was and who my Tevye is, as opposed to Danny Burston, who played it brilliantly on Broadway. I obviously watched him work, but you're not sitting there thinking, how would I do this or what, I had my own job to do. So, yeah, so that's been so rewarding to just, even though again, I was in it, to feel like it's a new play to me because it's a whole new role and a whole new world that Jordan created.
Yeah, I mean Jordan Fein, he's really created this incredible world on stage. It's really vivid and it is quite immersive as well for the audience too. What were those conversations like with Jordan in the rehearsal about how to bring this show back to the stage, especially during this political climate as well, and how to make the show feel particularly relevant too?
Yeah. One of the first rules was that we weren't going to bring politics into the room, which I think was a really good rule because you're right. It's not like we're shying away from anything, but it's ultimately up to the audience to take what they take from it and not for us to comment on current events. And there have been current events for a long time. Obviously, these current events feel very dire, but obviously there's been conflict since the beginning of time. So, and someone's always going to see something in it. But our focus was to just create a world that, as you said, felt relevant today, but still withheld some of the tradition, most of the quote unquote tradition of when it taking place in 1905 is when the story is set. And then also a bit through the lens of the 1960s, which is when it was created initially for Broadway by that dream team of creators, wanting to take a little bit of that perspective as well to give people who were around then and saw it then a way to connect with it as well. So, and it was very important in that time because of civil rights and women's rights and everything that was going on in the 60s. So I'm sure people came and saw it and interpreted, through that lens as well. So it's really it's really about what the audience takes away from it. We didn't want to put any kind of spin on it. We didn't want to make any statement because the statements are for audiences to make.
Of course. I mean, when you look back at rehearsals as well, was there a particular moment for you which felt particularly impactful or challenging as well when approaching the role of Tevye too?
Initially, I was sort of crying through everything because it's also beautiful and personal and familiar and emotional. So there were impactful moments every day. I kept saying to Jordan and to other actors, I was like, don't worry, I'm not going to cry this much. I'm not going to cry this much. But when someone opens their mouth to sing something as beautiful as Far From the Home I Love, or Laura Pulver and I are singing Do You Love Me? And it's about being married for 25 years. I've been married for 24 years, And so these things are very relevant and very personal. So every day I would say I wept, and which was really a nice way to sort of come into the piece and then be able to sort of scale that emotion back and allow, obviously, again, the audience to have an experience. It's not about our experience, it's about the audience experience. But I think the first time I sang If I Were a Rich Man to completion in the room was a very impactful moment, because if you can pull that off in a convincing and powerful way, it really emboldens you and makes you feel like you can kind of do anything.
Mm.
So that was a great day.
Yeah, definitely. What was it like as well, stepping out onto the open air stage as well? It's such a magical theater in London.
It's the most beautiful place. I mean, it feels like an enchanted garden. I mean, it's just absolutely gorgeous. I can't believe that we are working there. Um, it feels very intimate. The house, the theater itself holds, I think, 1,300, but it feels very intimate because it sort of goes high as opposed to far back. So we're all in it together, and then just surrounded by the beauty of that park and then of nature, and you know, hearing the birds settling in for the night as we're starting up, and all of the life that's all around you, um, both in terms of the audience and the natural life around you and your fellow company members. It really creates a magical experience, not to mention things that occur with the weather that are interesting and fun, and um, it's just really the most beautiful experience. We have a similar theater in New York, the Delacorte Theater in Central Park, Shakespeare in the Park, which I think I did 3 productions there. Similar experience, only it's a much bigger theater, not doesn't have the intimacy, gorgeous as well, but so I was no stranger to performing outside, and it really keeps you staying alive on stage to anything that can happen. One night I was singing and 2 pigeons flew right in front of me, so I tracked them with my finger as I was singing my song, and it started to rain the other day slightly, and I got to sort of raise my fist at the air, uh, and everyone appreciated the gesture, so it's really beautiful, really electric and alive.
Yeah, I really love going there whenever I get the chance. Why do you think this space also lends itself particularly well to Fiddler on the Roof as well?
Well, because of I mean, Fiddler takes place mostly outside. The conceit of the play is that it's a lot of outdoor stuff. So that right away is obviously a connection. But there's something about the earthiness, and certainly the earthiness of that set that they've created, Tom Scott created with Jordan, and, you know, collaboration. It's just so earthy and beautiful and simple, and lends itself to the outdoor air, and really wants to be outside. You don't have fake flats of houses flying in and flying out, and oh, well, this will be your house, and you'll walk through this cardboard house and turn the corner, and it just says, here we are, we're out in nature. This one space becomes every space in the play, and I think it's really successful.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is your first time performing in London as well. How has that experience been for you so far as well? Has it been what you expected to?
I didn't know what to expect, and it has exceeded those unknown expectations. It's been a total dream. I probably say to the company too much how much I appreciate them, and what a strong um, and supportive group of performers and crew, and everyone is just so um, committed and serious about doing their work and helping each other along. So I needed a lot of help because I'm, you know, just landing here and sort of trying to adjust and don't know where the Tesco is or what a Tesco is and why I should or shouldn't. And everyone was just so incredibly kind and helpful, always checking in with me. And then on top of that, they're all incredibly talented and generous with their work. So it's been a total dream to work with this group. I feel like people always say it when you're working on a play, but you really become a family very quickly. You may stop and say, wait, I don't even know their last name, but I would still, you know, uh, go to battle on stage with them. It's just such a wonderful um, job that we have as actors, that we can become instantly so close and create something so beautiful as this play.
Yeah, I feel like Fiddler on the Roof, it's a show that, so many people know really well too. And it's been great to see, the nuances in this new production and the choices that you as a team have made. Were there
Mhm.
any particular things that you really want to highlight about Fiddler on the Roof to showcase to audiences?
I think, I'm talking about the family that we created as a company, but I think the importance of community and the importance of family, the importance of being able to lean on each other for anything, while battling external forces that may be encroaching upon your world, but that the camaraderie, the family, the love, the joy that you can find in darker moments is really important. And what really fuels me as a person and as an actor, um, just knowing that people have your back, and that you can laugh together through your tears. We all have those people in our lives that we can share really sad, tragic news with, and end up laughing and making jokes just to help get through. And this show is particular in that. um Humor is such a part of it, because it's a way that these people, certainly in the play, but most of us, learn how to cope through humor. And it's a particularly Jewish humor is particularly dry and ironic and can be biting, but it knows why it exists, if that makes sense. It exists to help create some levity in very challenging times.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like another huge theme as well in the show is tradition versus change. How do you feel like this theme, resonates with audiences today too?
I think there's a very strong, without beating people over the head with it, there's a really refreshing and strong feminist outlook on this piece. And that really resonates, when we talk about tradition. Obviously, in the play, we're talking about, Tevye speaking about the traditions of his faith and of their faith, and that's what keeps the town from sliding off of the roof, is this tradition. But I think today's audience is more likely to see, the traditions that we've, quote unquote, traditional marriages, traditional gender roles, traditional ways of behaving as a woman or as a man, and really challenges those, again, without taking out some sort of, sign that we hold up that says, hey, this is also about this. It's intrinsic to it in one way, and it's also been, crafted in another to sort of bring those tones out as well, because it's important for an audience that may not identify with the Jewish faith, which is probably a large portion of our audience. It's nice that I'm sure they're seeing these other themes come bubbling up.
Yeah, I mean, for yourself as well, approaching the role of Tevye, did you feel like you were able to quite easily relate to him as well? Were there many aspects to his character that you were able to identify within yourself too?
Um, completely. I mean, the thing is that, like, he is, and this is not, I'm not taking it to task, but he is me. So it's not that I have to go find him. That I am him. I am at the time of my life that he would have been at. I am of the same sort of sensibilities about humor and love of family and all that. And so it was very easy once I got past the idea of, like you're talking about, the idea of Tevye being, the greats that have played it before, and being a very sort of grounded, strong, traditional man who speaks to the audience, the beautiful performances, but that's not who I am. And if I were to do that, then I would be chasing the idea of what this role is. Instead, this guy is quirky, vulnerable, has a good sense of humor, angry, emotional, as I said before. It's everything that I am. And then on another side, yes, it does. It reminds me of my family. My grandfather is in me every night that I play this part. Just both of my grandfathers, actually, but on my mother's side, very strong-willed, prone to anger at times, but always the most loving at his core. You never worried that, that Poppy was going to cut you out, even if you did something really stupid, like had a party at your house that nobody knew about. He may yell at you and say, "Oh, there was one occasion where he yelled at me about this party that I got caught that friends of mine had at my house. I'm getting off track, but he started yelling at me and he was like, "Oh, you're a big singer, a big dancing man, but you don't care about your family, you don't care about your house." And that part of him is such a part of my Tevye, I think. So that's a long way to say I love playing the part. It's very close and familial and familiar.
Yeah, of course. Do you feel like since playing him, you feel like your outlook on life has changed much as well too? Do you feel like he's changed you in any way as well?
Um, I think I've become more connected to how I see the world and how I see my life as it changes. That's the big thing that I really learned was, again, in talking about tradition to me is what is known. It doesn't have to be religious. It doesn't have to be, it's what you know to be true. And then as you start to age, things start to shift, and your kid that you thought was going to do this ends up doing this. And your marriage that was so easy when you were the first year of it becomes more challenging because of this. And all these things that you think you have figured out, health, all these things you're like, okay, I'm good, I'm on a good track. And then all of a sudden you hit a place in life where everything starts to change. So I find myself trying to hang on to what I would refer to as tradition, being what is known, what I've always known.
I feel like also like recently, this summer, I feel like we've also had various classic musicals coming to the London scene. Shows like Fiddler on the Roof, Hello Dolly, Kiss Me Kate. Why do you think now feels like such a good time to be bringing these classic shows back to the stage?
I really wish I had an answer. I don't know. I think things just happen in waves. Sometimes you'll get a rush of a bunch of new works, that are brave and bold and new, and then they take off. Sometimes you get a big wave of, movie title to bring up Beetlejuice and Back to the Future and all these things that sort of come in a wave. I think it just happens to be a moment where people are re-exploring those older musicals. Bart Sher, who directs Kiss Me, Kate, was my director for Fiddler on the Roof as well. So he loves it. He did Camelot. He's done My Fair Lady, King and I. He's known for his reinvention of those big classic musicals and loves them and loves finding what is relatable, what is contemporary, what is the truth, what is so corny that he wants to cut it immediately. You know, um, uh, so yeah, I just think it just happens to be a wave this summer. I wouldn't look too much deeper myself unless do you have a theory on it?
No, I just think it's interesting to see all these shows coming back all of a sudden, during this in one summer in particular.
Yeah, you can say, people have times of nostalgia, the older generations that were seeing these plays when they were young are now older, and there may be a desire to revisit them. But also I think for a lot of artistic minded people, it's a chance to, like you said, to like re-explore and reinvent these traditionally classic, impactful, powerful musicals of the past and say, hey, what's going on in this now? What is going
Mm.
on in Kiss Me now? What is going on in Hello Dolly now? What's going on in No No Nanette now? Just
Yes.
kidding. You don't want to know. No offense to those who saw No No Nanette in 1922 or whatever. But so I think there could be a sense of that as well. And now, and our directors and artistic leaders have grown up with those musicals. Certainly, Jordan Fein has a huge connection to Fiddler on the Roof and grew up with it all around him, and has always been a dream of his to um, to open this one up and see what's inside and to present his vision on it. And he's so clearly thought it out. We spoke 6 months or so even before the production, and he was already telling me these ideas that he had, these images that he had, and they've all come to fruition. Even when I was like, I wonder if that will work. They're all in the play now, and they're all beautiful and so thoughtful. And here's this, under 40 director who grew up with it, just wanting to take his crack at it. So I think it's commendable, and it's really beautiful.
Yeah, I mean it's a really gorgeous production. You know, just seeing the Fiddler and seeing the role that he plays in this production as well, seeing him really visible on stage. You mentioned Beetlejuice earlier, and there's been so much speculation about when that show will arrive on our shores. If the opportunity came, would you want to come back to that show at all? And what memories do you have of being in Beetlejuice too?
Oh, well, I think it will come here. I would be surprised if it doesn't. I'm already surprised that it hasn't. I think probably the West End tends to be a bit of a crowded place to get a space maybe, and there's obviously a lot of work, both old and new, that's just arriving here. So I would not be surprised if it doesn't show up. I would love to be a part of it again. Love the production, but really love this town. It's just a nice departure from the heaviness. Not that it doesn't get heavy here, obviously, but the sort of unending heaviness that we're going through in our country right now, without getting too much into it. But it's just been really nice as an outsider to come here and be here. So I keep saying, like, how do I get another job here so that I can work here some more? And my family, who just left today, unfortunately, can come over and explore, and have their own adventures here. Beetlejuice was an incredible experience. It was one of those shows that, that you hear it and people just sort of scoffed at it out of hand without knowing what was being created. But they took the template of the movie and then created an entirely new story with those characters and with that sort of thematic and Burton-esque world, um, and surprised everybody and became this real huge hit, huge cult hit, huge, so many young people. I can't tell you how many young people I spoke with or DM'd with or whatever that identified so much with the idea of being young and feeling alone and confused and not fitting in, being an oddball. There's so many of us out there that feel like the odd one in the room, right? So that's the kind of show that just really tapped into that, for the youth. Um, and then, folks my age who had seen the movie coming up just wanted to see those characters again. So it had a really broad appeal and came at a really great time. Unfortunately, COVID came in the middle of it, so that was not a great time. But we shut down and moved theaters, and then I don't forget the timeline now, but maybe a year and a half later, reopened to great fanfare and expectation. So it was a really magical experience. Great creative team, great cast, and I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see it here. And if you know anyone who can get me my part back, let me know.
Yeah, definitely will do. Yeah, it's been so lovely talking to you. Just as a last question, what do you hope audiences will take away with them when they come and see Fiddler on the Roof?
I hope that they want to see it again, and I don't even necessarily mean our production. That's the first reaction I have, is that it's such a beautiful show, as it sits on the page. Or, a couple of moments that you have to sort of like, I don't know, just sort of scrape away because they're a little dated. But really, it's just so resonant still, and I hope it makes people who haven't seen it before want to see it again, and those who have seen it before want to see it again and again and again, because it is so rich and so beautiful. And I use the word beautiful a lot when I'm talking about the show, but I want them to feel like they've had a really rich theatrical experience, and they're not just on to the next thing or onto their phone, tweeting something other. I wanted to sit with people. That's what you always want as an actor, is to have people sit with something after and talk about it on their walk home and talk about it on the tube on the way home, and really go over it and what resonates and what means something to an individual. Humming If I Were a Rich Man would be okay too.
Yeah, yeah, it's a really beautiful show. Really loved your performance. I think the whole company are really great. I love the sets. Love the orchestrations. Hearing that band play, is yeah, it's so euphoric.
So beautiful. And I should say lighting and sound too. Without that, they feel like scene partners in the show as well. The lights feel like somehow a partner in the show, as does the sound. So they've really, the whole team has done an incredible job of wedging this into this theater in a really short amount of time. So I'm very, very lucky to be a part of it.
Adam Dannheisser, thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course, my pleasure.